Imagine plunging 18,000 feet into the pitch-black abyss of the Philippine Sea only to find a warship that looks like it's frozen in time, where the paint hasn't faded and the history hasn't rusted away. Most shipwrecks are eventually consumed by the ocean, turned into unrecognizable mounds of coral and decay. But the debris field of the USS Indianapolis is different. It's haunting, it's pristine, and it's arguably the most incredible underwater discovery of our generation. Welcome back. Today we are returning to the most famous find by the RV Petrel, the final resting place of the cruiser that delivered the atomic bomb. While the main hull is a marvel, the surrounding debris field holds the true secrets of her violent final moments. We're talking about massive 8-inch turrets goring the seafloor radio equipment, where the dials are still legible, and personal artifacts that make the tragedy of July 1945 feel like it happened only yesterday. In this video, we're going beyond the headlines. We are analyzing the surgical preservation of the bridge, the scattered scout planes, and the eerie kill tallies still visible on the gun tubs. This isn't just a graveyard of steel, it is a perfectly preserved time capsule of the greatest generation, hidden nearly 4 miles down. That journey began with a morning so strangely peaceful, the kind of tranquility that often lulls one into a false sense of security before the gathering of an internal storm. Luggage was neatly packed, radiant smiles were exchanged through window frames, and promises were made about a bright future awaiting at the destination. At that time, no one could have imagined that every revolution of the wheels or every pulse of the waves was a step closer to the abyss of destiny. The road ahead, originally painted in the rosy hues of hope, was suddenly shrouded in a ghostly mist, signaling a series of irreversible events. The initial excitement was gradually replaced by a thick, heavy atmosphere. Time seemed to freeze in that fateful moment. A terrifying sound tore through the silence, followed by the screeching of clashing metal, the sound of things shattering, and desperate screams that dissolved into the void. In that instant, the boundary between life and death became thinner than ever. All the plans, all the dreams that had been so vivid just moments ago were now nothing more than broken fragments beneath the feet of a cruel fate. The tragedy struck without warning, brutal and cold. The surrounding space was left with nothing but the smell of smoke and dust and the desolation of ruin and the chilling emptiness of loss. Familiar faces grew strange in the depths of ultimate agony. There were those who would remain forever in the dust, carrying with them untold stories and words of love never shared. The nightmare unfolded so rapidly, so fast, that the human mind could not react, leaving one only to stand and watch their happiness evaporate like mist in the blink of an eye. A haunting silence enveloped the scene after the upheaval. It was not peace, but the stifling muteness of bleeding hearts. Survivors looked around in a daze, finding themselves standing amidst the wreckage of both material and spirit. Physical pain perhaps paled in comparison to the deep wound carved into the soul upon realizing that from this moment on their lives had taken a completely different turn, a path filled with tears and the haunting obsession of a fateful trip that had stolen everything. In the abyssal darkness of the ocean or the thick viscous night of destiny, the only thing that once provided a facade of security was the pale blue glow emanating from the radar screen. The sonar map with its concentric lines and light dots scanning in a mechanical rhythm was meant to be the eyes of the vessel, the final hope for humanity to subdue the infinity of nature. Yet in that harsh hour, the very signals intended to guide became a pre-announced death sentence delivered through dry, hollow pings that echoed like the pulse of a fading heart. As they ventured deeper into the danger zone, The sonar map grew increasingly chaotic. Strange flares of light began to appear, dense and inexplicable, like ghosts rising from the depths to reclaim their territory. The silence of the cockpit was shattered by the frantic rhythm of warning alarms. On the screen, a massive black mass suddenly materialized, looming and cold, obstructing the path they had so blindly trusted. It was more than a physical obstacle. It was the embodiment of an irredeemable miscalculation, a rift in destiny that no technology could bridge. Then the unthinkable happened. A deathly silence stretched for a heartbeat before the horrific collision truly took place. It did not start with an explosion, but with a violent shudder running down the vessel's spine, as if the very ground beneath them had been twisted by an invisible hand. Then came the sound of destruction, the screeching of steel being torn apart, the groans of metal frames buckling under impossible pressure, and the roar of water surging into the newly formed gashes. The impact was so immense, it obliterated all sense of direction, transforming a sturdy sanctuary into a mangled heap of ruin. The sonar map, once the trusted guide, was now nothing more than a shattered mirror. Its blue light flickered and then died, leaving everything in total darkness. In that moment of impact, everything seemed to warp time, elongated in pain, and contracted in terror. Humans became small and helpless before the brutal force of the crash. It was not merely a collision between two objects, but a head-on impact between hope and grim reality, between a burning life and a cold death waiting to swallow all. The final sounds ebbed away, replaced by the relentless rush of water and an irreversible collapse. The transition from a living, breathing vessel to a ghost ship happens in a heartbeat, yet it feels like an eternity of decay. As the dust of the collision settles and the roar of the initial impact recedes into a low, menacing growl of rushing water, the bridge, once the proud brain of the ship, is transformed into a hollow sepulcher. The pale blue light of the sonar has been replaced by the rhythmic dying flicker of emergency lamps, casting long, distorted shadows that dance across the walls, like the spirits of those who once stood guard here. Stepping into the bridge is like entering a nightmare, frozen in time. The floor, once a stable foundation of authority, is now treacherously tilted, forcing any movement to become a desperate struggle against gravity. Shards of reinforced glass from the shattered windshield litter the consoles, sparkling like cold diamonds in the gloom. The captain's chair sits vacant, a silent witness to the moment control was snatched away by the indifferent hand of the abyss. Instruments that once dictated the ship's destiny now hiss with the sound of short-circuiting wires, of frantic electrical weeping for a future that will never come. Further into the heart of the wreckage lies the radio room, a cramped sanctuary that has become a tomb of silence. This was the ship's voice, and the singular link between the fragile human souls on board and the vast, uncaring world outside. Now the air here is thick with the acrid scent of ozone and the damp chill of the encroaching sea. The radio equipment, once a marvel of connectivity, sits slumped and broken. A single headset hangs by its cord, swaying back and forth, with a slow, rhythmic list of the hull tapping against the bulkhead like a ghostly metronome. On the desk, a logbook remains open, its pages dampening and curling in the humid air. The last entry ends abruptly, a jagged line of ink trailing off into nothingness, a silent scream captured on paper. There is a haunting quality to the static emanating from the speakers. It is no longer just white noise, but a raspy, wheezing breath, as if the ship itself is gasping for air. The SOS signal sent out in a feverish panic seemed to linger in the corners of the room, unanswered and unanchored, drifting through the dark corridors like whispers of the damned. In this ghost ship state, the technology that once defined human progress has become a collection of rusted relics. The bridge and the radio room. The eyes and voice of the voyage are now blind and mute. They are the haunted remains of a command that no longer exists, presiding over a vessel that has already begun its slow, agonizing descent into the history of the deep. The silence here is not empty. It is heavy, pregnant with the weight of every word left unspoken and every command that came too late. Beyond the cold, jagged steel of the bridge and the mute electronics of the radio room lies a more profound, more devastating layer of the wreckage. It is not found in the blueprints of the vessel or the logs of the captain, but in the intimate scattered debris of 1,000 lives, interrupted. As the silt settles and the emergency lights cast their dying flickers, the human element emerges from the shadows, not in flesh and bone, but through the haunting mementos left behind in the wake of the catastrophe. Among the twisted remains of a passenger cabin, a single photograph floats in a slow, phantasmagoric dance. It is a portrait of a family sun-drenched and radiant, captured during a summer that felt as though it would never end. Now the edges are frayed, and the ink is bleeding, the smiles of the children beginning to blur into the murky gray of the seawater. This fragile piece of paper, once a treasure carried close to someone's heart, is now a ghostly relic. It serves as a cruel reminder that for every soul lost, there was a story, a home, and a world of connections that were severed in the blink of an eye. Nearby, a small hand-knitted teddy bear rests against a pile of broken porcelain. Its once vibrant colors are now muted by the grime of the depths, and its glass eyes stare blankly into the void, having witnessed the unspeakable. There is a profound, suffocating sorrow in seeing such innocence lost amidst the wreckage of a machine. It represents the smallness of humanity against the vastness of the tragedy, the vulnerability of our hopes when they collide with the indifferent power of the elements. The toy is no longer a source of comfort. It is a monument to a childhood that will never reach its conclusion. Further along the corridor, a gold pocket watch lies half buried in the silt. Its crystal is cracked and its hands are frozen at the exact second the horrific collision tore through the hull. It is a chilling physical manifestation of the moment time stopped for everyone on board. Beside it, a half-finished letter lies pinned under a heavy piece of debris. The handwriting is elegant, detailing plans for a homecoming and the simple joys of a life waiting on the shore. The sentence ends in a jagged stroke, a silent scream of ink, where the pen was wrenched away by the force of the impact. These items are the true ghosts of the ship. They are not mere objects. They are anchors of grief, holding the memory of the departed in a state of perpetual watery stasis. To look upon them is to feel the weight of every goodbye that went unsaid and every promise that will never be kept. The ship may be a hollow shell of steel and rust, but these personal artifacts are the echoes of existence crying out from the silence of the abyss. They transform the tragedy from a statistic into a visceral, heart-wrenching reality. The realization that the greatest loss was not the vessel itself, but the dreams that were carried within it. As the final flickers of energy expire and the wreckage settles into the eternal embrace of the seabed, a profound, heavy silence descends. The frantic alarms have long since ceased, and the violent roar of the ocean has softened into a rhythmic, cold pulse. Here, In the crushing depths where the sun's reach ends, the ship is no longer a vessel of ambition. It has become a sanctuary of secrets, a cathedral of rust and memory. The ghost ship now rests in a world where time has no meaning, and the only movements are the slow shifts of silt and the ghost-like currents that weave through its hollow corridors. The story of this ill-fated journey serves as a somber reflection of our own fragility. We build great machines of steel and trust our lives to the precision of sonar maps, yet we remain perpetually at the mercy of a single, unpredictable heartbeat of fate. The tragedy is not just found in the twisted metal or the sunken bridge, but in the lingering echoes of those haunted mementos, the frozen watches, the blurred photographs, and the unfinished letters that will never find their way home. They are whispers from the deep, reminding us that every life is a fragile flame, easily extinguished, but infinitely precious. As the abyss swallows the last remnants of light, we are left to wonder about the resilience of the human spirit in its final moments. Did they find comfort in a shared look? Did they whisper a prayer into the dark? We may never have the answers, but we carry their stories forward, ensuring that the names lost to the depths are not forgotten by the tides of time. The ocean may keep the wreckage, but it cannot claim the legacy of the souls who once dared to dream of the horizon. If you have been moved by this journey into the heart of the abyss and wish to explore more stories of mystery, resilience, and the untold chapters of history, we invite you to join our community. Please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell. Your support allows us to keep digging deeper into these haunting narratives, ensuring that the whispers of the past continue to be heard. Thank you for walking through the shadows with us. Until our next descent, may you cherish the light of today and the people who share it with you.